Have you ever had a love and hate relationship? Have you ever loved someone that you knew was wrong from the beginning? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the definition of that. Mercedes 220 S-Class. Hello and welcome to Accident on Cars. Today we have one of the most hated and loved Mercedes S-Classes of all time, W220 Mercedes S-Class. And I'm gonna explain all of this for you. I'm gonna explain what was so special about this car, why people loved it and hated it at the same time, whether they're reliable, and most importantly, whether you should buy one. Stay till the end of the video and you're gonna have answers to all your questions. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not just an S-Class. This is the S-Class, S600. This is the car that the powers of the world, presidents, prime ministers of the world drove back in the day brand new. $180,000 brand new, adjusted for today's inflation. This was a true dream car back in 2000. Manufactured from 2000 all the way till 2006. This was the replacement for the king, for the pinnacle of Mercedes engineering, W140 S-Class. So Mercedes engineers had to come up with something special. But it was also not the best time for the Mercedes-Benz financially. They had to cut costs and yet replace the legendary S-Class. And how do you do that? So to achieve that insurmountable task, Mercedes engineers had to shove all the existing and non-existent technology in this body. So this car was a huge leap forward in terms of technological advancement. Unfortunately, that means bad things for this car, making this one of the most hated Mercedes S-Classes of all time. The reliability was not accepted, and today I'm gonna unpack all of that for you. But before we talk about reliability, let's just have a quick walk around. I'm gonna talk about the exterior and distinct features of 220 S-Class and S600 specifically. And then we're gonna open the hood, talk about reliability, and then we're gonna take it out on the road and drive it. So the first thing that Mercedes owners and S-Class owners did not accept well was the design itself. The S-Class 140 had this like boxy, square look to it, when this one was a brand new design language for the Mercedes. It had this like kind of like melted, bubbly shape to it, which some owners did not like and did not accept well initially. But over time, people started loving it if it was not for the reliability issues, which I'll get to in a second. This particular car has an AMG front bumper, which is not standard, but the owner had put it. It has bi-xenon headlights with like active curve illumination, all of that. This particular car does not have a Distronic, but Distronic or like active adaptive cruise was I think it was actually first introduced in Mercedes S-Class. Nowadays, your grandmother's minivan has it, but it actually debuted in the S-Class, slowly trickled down to lower Mercedeses, and nowadays all the cars have it on the streets. So, but the technological advancements don't stop there. The paint itself on this car was actually very thick. It's probably thicker than the actual metal, sheet metal in newer Mercedeses nowadays. These rims do not belong in this particular car, but they were unique to S-Classes, so the owner has retrofitted them. The V12 bi-turbo, just so everybody seeing this car from around, do not assume this is your like regular S350 diesel. This is the best S-Class in the world. See this glass? It's not a regular glass. It's double pane glass with acoustic canceling or whatever. So when you get into this car, you are in a vault. You are not bothered by anything happening on the street. You are a minister, you are a prime minister, a president. You are not to be bothered by those who voted for you. Why would you? Let those peasants be. The car had a soft close, which was one of the coolest features ever introduced in S-Classes. I think maybe even 140 S-Class had it, I'm not sure, but 220 definitely had it, and that's great. Another technological advancement that likely you didn't know that exists in all cars nowadays, LED stoplights was first introduced on 220 Mercedes S-Class. Before that, there were no LED stoplights on any car on the road. And see this trunk? Let's open it. It opens rather quickly, which is surprising. Everything in this car is operated by a thing called PSC pump, which is crazy. It's basically like I believe it's either hydraulic or vacuum pump that controls soft closing doors, controls the trunk, controls even like the seat controls, massage, everything is controlled by this single pump. When it breaks, it's a huge headache. This particular S-Class does not have the buttons for closing the trunk, but that was an option, and it would close rather quickly and abruptly. So if you have one of those, make sure you don't put your fingers in between. There's nothing unusual in the trunk itself. It's spacious, but there is no like ski pass, nothing. You will know why, because this car has executive back seats. See this line? See this like straight line? In most cars, including my E-Class AMG, it stops right here at the door. But because this is an S-Class, this is an S600, they had to go the extra mile. So this line continues onto the rear fender, making it look just a tad cooler. When you get an S-Class in general, right, and you see all this new tech, just know that in 20 years, your regular Hyundai or Honda will have it. A lot of people attribute safety features to Volvos, but a lot of safety features, including ABS and stuff, actually were introduced, debuted in the S-Class. Not this one, like generally in S-Classes. So S-Classes are always at the avant-garde of technology and advancement, and slowly regular peasants like us, all of us, get them in lesser cars. Speaking of safety, of course they had to take care of the important VIP passengers in the car. So 220 S-Class was the first S-Class to introduce pre-safe, which basically means if the car senses that you lose control of the car or you are about to get into an accident, it tensions the seat belts. If you lose control and you spin the car around, it will automatically roll the windows up to make sure that when they burst, if there's a side impact, you don't get hit in the face by a shattering glass. So very cool stuff, very technological stuff. With that, let's open the hood and let's talk a little bit about reliability, engine, transmission. And you can really work out your biceps by opening and closing this hood. Very heavy, as you can imagine, from Mercedes of this era. Okay, now let's talk about the tech, the unfortunate part, the reliability. And let's talk about what makes this car the most hated Mercedes S-Class in the world. As you can see, the engine is magnificent. M275 v12, 36 valves, producing 491, I believe, horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque, which was a significant bump, more than 130 horsepower than the naturally aspirated V12 in the preface model. The engine itself is considered one of the best V12s in the world. It was used in pretty much all V12 equipped Mercedeses up to recent years. So this engine is considered very reliable. So you don't have to worry about the engine itself. By the way, AMG specialist, it's 5.5 liter, but the AMG specialist increased the bore a little bit. And in the AMG in S65, it was 6 liter, just as true to the name, S600. It was 6 liter and it made 620 something horsepower. It made like significantly more horsepower. Being bi-turbo, you can tune it by Rentec, or any other tuner, but Rentec guaranteed 625 horsepower, I believe. So it has a huge potential for tuning. It will take all that extra power and torque, no issues. So if you get one of these cars, you should not be worried about the engine itself. Now you may have oil leaks and stuff, but no catastrophic like mechanical failures. That's guaranteed. Very solid engine. Transmission, 722.6 or 5-speed Mercedes transmission that was in pretty much all Mercedeses from 2000 till like 2006 or something. And that transmission is bulletproof. Sometimes it may develop kind of like electronics related issues, usually conductor plates, solenoids, tons of specialists in the world, easy to DIY and not that expensive to fix if it breaks. But that's kind of like where the reliability of the car ends. Then comes the nightmare. You know, all these like technological advancements I talked about, such as the PSC pump or ABC or active body control, hydraulic suspension, electronics, everything is and may and will fail at some point, unfortunately. If you don't know, ABC is this like kind of like hydraulic suspension system by Mercedes, and it helps to maintain the car leveled. Even when you like accelerate, stop, go around the corner, the car will stay flat. Unfortunately, Mercedes dropped the ball in that they did not tell people that they were serviceable. So people did not even service them. They never changed the fluid, they never serviced the pump. Those who did still have active and working ABCs. Those who didn't don't have ABCs. Just like the owner of this car, he was tired dealing with it, so he just converted the car to coilovers. So if you convert it to coilover, one of your biggest problems will be gone. Oh, one expensive item on these cars might be the mounts. I don't know if it's possible in the S-Class to replace them without pulling the engine out. I know like in SL and stuff, you had to like pull the engine out to replace the freaking mounts. I think in the S-Class you might be able to replace them with the engine in the car. And if you do, it's a heavy engine. I recommend putting like solid mounts. Another big ticket item might be the coil packs. So unfortunately, unlike many other Mercedes engines, you cannot buy the coil packs individually. If one of your coils doesn't work, you have to kind of like get the whole assembly. And I believe it's like a couple of thousand or something like that. So expensive. They either work or break. It's not one of those things that you have to kind of like ponder about too much. If they work, great. If they break one day, be prepared to spend the money. As soon as you get in the car, what strikes you first is the ample amount of leather and Alcantara everywhere. In your regular Mercedes, if you look down below, like the door sills and the door pockets, you will find some plastic. And not in this car, everything is wrapped in Alcantara or leather. I think like hundreds tons of beef had to be consumed to wrap the interior of just one S600. Everything here is like super smooth. Like in my car, for example, when you put the key on, the steering wheel like moves down. But in the S-Class, it moves down just a little bit smoother. And the trims that are not covered in leather, they are covered in expensive walnut wood, and the real wood. If you remove all these panels, you will see that the wood is actually somewhat thick. In your newer Mercedes, it is a very thin panel of wood. So unlike the pre-facelift, where you could still find like uglier, older looking plastic buttons, no chrome trim and stuff, in the facelift, Mercedes refined the interior even further, making it look much nicer with this like redesigned buttons everywhere. One of the coolest things in this car is how you change the tape. Sorry, yes, this infotainment still had a tape and CD and radio. You would never find how to change the tape if you didn't know the trick. This is the coolest things I've ever seen. You basically click on the eject button, and then if you click on the tape, the whole screen moves down, revealing where the tape would go. And if you click on eject again and click on the CD and DVD, the screen moves up. They don't make cars nowadays like this. It's an example of over-engineering. Glove compartment, you think it's a regular, you open it, it's pretty regular, but there's a secondary pocket here for your business cards and your pens and pencils so that you can sign those expensive contracts. Another cool touch here was the SOS button, like how you would call emergencies. You don't just push it. You push it, the button opens, and it's kind of like flashing. It's like a starting up an air, kind of like a aircraft or something. You click on it and it would call the emergency service back in the day. The car has a 4-zone climate control. The seats are both heated and cooled. And surprisingly, Mercedes gives you like 2 settings for the heat and 3 settings for the cooled seats. Mercedes is also, I think, is the only car manufacturer where you can turn both the heat and cool seat zone at the same time. I love that. Now, my favorite feature in the S600 specifically is that the back seats are also controllable. You can basically like recline, you can extend the cushion, you can have your back seats like heated and ventilated as well. Heated back seats is somewhat standard nowadays in most cars, but in the S-Class you could also have your back seats to be ventilated. That is not an option in most Mercedes even nowadays. And you have massaging rear seats. Name me a car, give me an example of a car where you've seen massaging back seats unless you are spending 200K. On the rear passenger side, there are 2 extra buttons here that are not present on the left side. If you push this button, you can now control the front seat. So you can like push the front seat all the way forward if you want to have extra leg space. And if you push the secondary button, you are controlling the rear seats. Watch this. Oh, so good. You can recline all the way back and enjoy long trips. All right, I think it's enough talking about this car in static. Let's jump behind the wheel and drive it, and we're gonna continue talking more about the comfort of the S-Class and driving and handling impressions. So the moment you touch the accelerator pedal, one thing that strikes you is that potent V12. It's so smooth, it's like buttery smooth. Some people might have not liked the feeling of W220 versus 140 because 140 felt like a bank vault. It was like very sturdy, over-engineered car that was pleasant to operate. This one was a little kind of like too smooth for people, but man, there is not such thing as too smooth. This engine is just so smooth. It's not even loud. It's, it just has like little growl you hear, but If you've ever driven an older Mercedes, then you know what I'm talking about. What they've done surprisingly well is the noise isolation. I can't hear anything that's going on outside. I'm just here in serenity, enjoying my rich life. If the year is 2004 and I can buy one of these brand new. Yep. That bi-turbo engine is very fast. The only thing that maybe is slowing it down a little bit is this 5-speed transmission. It's a little slow to downshift, but luckily you can move it to the left to downshift manually or to the right to upshift manually. But this car is not about 0 to 60 times though. This car is not about quarter mile. But those numbers were impressive, by the way. It could do 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds, I believe, and quarter mile in 12.8 at 114 miles. This car, despite being 20 years old, will still beat most new cars, even like some performance cars. But that's not what this car was about. It was about autobahn cruising. It's about being isolated from the road and just like luxurious driving experience. The torque is there. I've applied maybe like 10% of the throttle and the engine just keeps going. You don't have to look at the RPMs. You don't have to worry about which gear you are in. You just tap it and it goes. And when the transmission finally downshifts, it rushes forward. Steering wheel is smooth. I would say it's still informative though. I still feel the road. I still feel the contour of the road at my fingertips. The seats, I thought the seats in my AMG were comfortable. Man, this is next level of softness. One thing I can't describe or stress enough, and you can't feel it through the camera, is the smell. It has the smell of old Mercedes, which is the biggest compliment I could give to it. Older Mercedes is like the leather smelled so good. Nowadays, brand new cars, you get in, they have this like kind of tar smell to them because most stuff is recycled. I don't know, they don't make cars like this anymore for sure. Yeah, let's do a little bit of a pull here. Unbelievable. Okay, down into second, 3000 RPM. Gosh. Yeah, no, torque is not an issue. Right now we are going about 45 miles an hour and the RPM needle is at 1100. Doesn't need a ton of torque. It doesn't need to rev up to go. Some errors here on the dashboard, that's understandable. But that doesn't hurt the driving experience. Just ignore it. Put some stickers on it. All right, merging onto the highway, flooring it. The traction control came on. I floored it at 45 miles an hour. Traction control was like blinking all the time. That's how potent the engine is. It's limited at 160 though. I bet it could go much faster than that. I think this must be just a safety thing. You know, they didn't want the Prime Minister in the back throwing up and praying for dear life. It may not have the solidness and the sturdiness of 140 S-Class, but it still feels like a freaking tank on the road. We just had a little bit of a one-wheel burnout there. Yeah, brakes, despite being 20 years old, are still pretty powerful. Nice growl from that V12. This is a legit AMG power, man. This V12 is so potent, so strong. If you can fix stuff yourself, I'm not talking about mechanical failures, by the way, I'm talking about electrical. If you can fix electrical failures yourself, or if you know someone who will not charge you an arm and leg, I would say definitely go ahead and get one of these cars if you want to experience V12. Remember, V12s are going extinct. You are not going to be able to get one. So if you want to experience the ultimate S-Class driving experience from 20 years ago, I would say go ahead and buy one. But do not mortgage your house to get one of these cars. It will be expensive to maintain, it will be expensive to own. Luckily, they've depreciated a lot. I think this particular car was sold for like $8,000 or something, which might be cheaper than Hui's cheapest S-Class in the country. Yeah, overall, a combined experience, you know, the steering wheel, the suspension, the smell, the sound of the engine, the transmission, it's such a nice package. It's really like, I can imagine even today, you know, 20 years later, you can get in this, like you can get out of work, stressed out, get in this thing, turn on your favorite music, and forget about all the problems in the world. There will be like a truck outside honking, you'll not hear it. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video so that YouTube promotes it to more people interested in Mercedes, and I'll see you in the future episodes.